I was sitting in my penthouse office when my phone buzzed, a FaceTime notification from my sister, Jenna. We hadn't spoken in weeks. Not after the last family dinner ended with her storming out, muttering something about Dad being disappointed again. I was knee-deep in numbers, closing a deal worth 7 figures for a client who thought the world revolved around imported marble and influencer wives. So yeah, when Jenna's name popped up, I almost ignored it. Then a message followed. You need to see this. No greeting, no emojis, just a video file, 37 seconds long. I tapped play without thinking. The first voice I heard was my father's, deep, familiar, and sharp enough to slice through me. He's a failure, he said. A damn burden. If it weren't for his mother's guilt, I'd have cut him off years ago. My breath hitched. He was sitting in his study, whiskey glass in hand, tie loosened, the leather chair behind him creaking like it always did when he got drunk and started rambling about standards and legacy. Jenna was in the background, trying to talk him down. Dad, stop. He's been working hard. He cut her off. Working hard? Please. He's been pretending. Always pretending. I pay his bills, his apartment, his damn car. He's never grown up. The video ended right there. 37 seconds of my father dismantling my entire existence like it was a hobby. I just stared at the screen. My own reflection stared back, hollow-eyed, disbelieving. What Jenna didn't know, what no one knew, was that for the past 3 years, I'd been paying off his loans, his gambling debts, the quiet settlements after he lost money in bad business ventures. Every month, I wired money to his accountant, making sure the Whitmore family name stayed clean. He never knew it was me. He thought some anonymous investor helped him recover. The irony? His failure son was the reason his name wasn't smeared across headlines. I leaned back, running a hand over my face. The city outside glittered through the glass like it didn't care. LA didn't pause for heartbreak. I laughed once, a dry, humorless sound. Then I texted Jenna back. Why do you send me that? She replied almost instantly. You deserved to know. I stared at those words until they blurred. Deserved to know. Maybe, but I sure as hell didn't deserve to feel this way again. Not after everything I'd done to crawl out of his shadow. That night, I didn't go home. I drove. Nowhere, really. Down Sunset, up Mulholland, through the glowing skeletons of luxury homes that looked perfect from the outside and hollow within. Kind of like us. The thing about betrayal, it doesn't shout. It whispers. It seeps in through familiar voices, favorite memories, old photographs you thought meant something. I stopped at a lookout. The city below looked like a circuit board, pulsing, alive. My phone buzzed again. Jenna. This time, a call. What? I answered, voice flat. You saw it, didn't you? Yeah. And you recorded it? He was drunk. I didn't mean to. He just said it and you thought I needed to hear it. I thought you should hear it, she said quietly. You keep defending him like he's some hero. You don't know what I've done for him. Then tell me. Tell me, because I'm tired of being the only one who doesn't know what the hell is going on in this family. I almost said it right there, that I'd been the one bailing him out, that every time she thought Dad had lucked out, it was me, quietly moving money to keep his empire from collapsing. But something stopped me. Pride, maybe, or pain. Forget it. You wouldn't understand. I hung up, because what would I even say? Hey sis, remember those family vacations Dad bragged about paying for? Yeah, that was me. Remember the new car he bought for Mom? My money. Remember how he called me a failure? Guess I paid for that speech too. The next morning, I showed up to work like nothing happened. My assistant, Chloe, was waiting by the elevator, latte in hand, bright smile. Morning, boss, she chirped. Board meeting at 9 and your dad's lawyer called. Something about transferring trust assets? My stomach twisted. Tell him I'll call back. She nodded, scribbling something on her iPad. Everything okay? Peachy, I lied. She could smile politely. She could tell I was off. Chloe always could. But I wasn't about to unload a lifetime of family dysfunction before 9 a.m. The day blurred into calls, contracts, fake smiles, the kind of routine that numbs you just enough to keep the truth quiet. Until lunchtime, when my phone buzzed again. Jenna. This time, a new message. He doesn't remember saying it. He wants to meet. I stared at the screen. My pulse spiked. Of course he didn't remember. The man could drink his way through an entire scandal and still show up to brunch like nothing happened. But something about her message, it wasn't just an invitation. It was a test. I texted back, "Fine. Tell him I'll be there tonight." She sent back a thumbs up. Emoji. I almost threw my phone. I spent the afternoon pacing my office, going through every memory of my father, his lectures, his silence, his approval that always came with a price. I remember being 13 and hearing him say, "You'll never survive in my world, son. You're too soft." I'd spent 20 years trying to prove him wrong, and now I realized he'd never see it anyway. That night, I pulled up to the Whitmore estate. Same iron gates, same marble fountain he'd imported from Italy like it was proof of superiority. The house smelled like old money and denial. Jenna greeted me at the door, her hair tied back, eyes red. "He's in the study," she said quietly. Of course he is. I walked in. Dad looked up from behind his mahogany desk, like a CEO facing a hostile takeover. "Son," he said, voice measured, as if he hadn't called me a burden less than 24 hours ago. "You wanted to see me?" He gestured to the seat opposite him. "Sit." I didn't. "You drunk now?" His eyes hardened. "You think you can talk to me like that?" "Guess I learned it from you." He exhaled slowly. "Look, I don't know what Jenna sent you, but I don't recall saying anything. Don't lie." His jaw tightened. "Watch your tone." "Watch yours," I shot back. "You think I don't know what you've said about me all these years? That I'm some charity case? Some embarrassment?" "You were an embarrassment," he snapped, voice rising. "You had everything handed to you, and you still managed to underperform. You don't understand the pressure of keeping this family together." "Keeping it together?" I laughed, sharp and cold. "I've been doing that for you." He frowned. "What the hell are you talking about?" "Your loans, Dad. Your gambling debts. Those mysterious investors who bailed you out. That was me." The silence that followed felt heavy enough to crush the room. He blinked once, then again. "What?" "Yeah." I stepped closer. "I've been paying off your mess for 3 damn years. Every month, quietly. Because I thought maybe, just maybe, you'd see me as something other than a disappointment." He looked like I'd slapped him. "You're lying." I pulled up my phone, opened a folder of receipts, wire transfers, and emails from his accountant, and I threw it on his desk. "Still think I'm lying?" He scrolled, eyes scanning each line, the color draining from his face. His hand trembled slightly before he slammed the phone down. "Why?" "Because you're my father." "That's not a reason," he said hoarsely. "That's an excuse." "No," I said, voice cracking despite myself. "That's loyalty." For a moment, he just sat there. Then he leaned back, eyes glassy, distant. "I didn't ask for your help." "You didn't have to," I whispered. "You already took it." I turned to leave. Jenna was standing by the door. She'd heard everything. Her hand was over her mouth, eyes wide. You paid his debts?" she said, voice shaking. I nodded once. "Now you know." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you would have tried to save him too." I walked past her. The air in the hallway felt thick with shock. My phone buzzed again. Chloe this time. "Client dinner at 8? Should I cancel?" I stared at the message and typed back, "Cancel everything." Then I looked up at the mansion, its perfect lighting, its expensive lies. Something in me cracked that night. Not anger, not sorrow, just a quiet decision. A man can only be called a failure so many times before he decides to redefine the word. I got in my car and drove off into the city lights, engine roaring like a pulse. I didn't know it yet, but that night was the beginning of everything. Exposure, revenge, truth. And the last time I ever called that man Dad. The next morning, I woke up with the kind of silence that feels heavier than noise. My phone was full of unread messages, mostly from Jenna, one from Mom, none from Dad. Figures. The city outside was humming like it always did. Expensive cars slicing through smog, espresso machines hissing like angry whispers. I went through the motions, shower, suit, coffee, but something about my reflection in the mirror looked different. Not older, just hollow, like the version of me that still wanted his approval finally died last night. At the office, everything felt too normal. Chloe smiled like always, holding my schedule, pretending she didn't notice the storm behind my eyes. "You okay?" she asked. "Never better," I said, because lies come easy when you've been raised on them. Around noon, I got a call from my dad's lawyer, Mason, the kind of man who wore $5,000 suits and a permanent smirk. "We need to talk," he said. "Your father's restructuring the trust. Some changes." My blood ran cold. "What kind of changes?" He hesitated. "Let's just say your position in it might not be as secure as it used to be." "Of course not," I muttered. "When?" "Tonight, family dinner." I hung up without a word. By evening, the Whitmore estate was glowing like a movie set, the kind of place where every chandelier screamed, "Look at us," while the family inside fell apart quietly. Mom greeted me with her usual softness, eyes kind but distant. "He's in the dining room," she said, her voice trembling just enough for me to notice. I walked in, and there he was, my father, sitting at the head of the table, surrounded by contracts and a half-empty decanter. Jenna sat across from him, jaw tight. He didn't even look up when I entered. "Sit down," he said. "We have business." I didn't move. "You couldn't call?" "This is family," he said simply, pouring himself another drink, "and family matters should be handled face to face." "Like the last one?" I snapped. His eyes flicked up, sharp as glass. "You still holding on to that?" "You mean the part where you called me a failure, or the part where I realized I was paying for your sins?" He sighed, almost bored. "Always the drama. Always the denial," I shot back. He slid a folder across the table. "Sign this." I glanced down. A trust modification. "My inheritance gone. My shares transferred." "You're cutting me out." "I'm protecting the family," he said coolly. "Your behavior has become unpredictable." I laughed. "You mean the part where I told the truth?" "The part where you embarrassed me," he said, voice rising. "You think I don't know what people are saying? That my son turned against me?" I leaned forward, whispering, "I didn't turn against you. I just stopped saving you." He stared at me like a stranger. Then he smiled, a cold, corporate smile. "You'll regret this." I pushed the folder back toward him. "No, Dad, you will." I turned to leave, but Jenna's voice stopped me. "Wait." She looked between us, eyes glassy. "Dad, this is insane. He's done nothing but clean up your messes." "Enough," he barked. "You both act like children." "Children," she said, standing now. "You made us this way." He slammed his glass down so hard it shattered. "You think you're better than me? You think you can survive without me?" I didn't answer. I just walked out, the sound of glass crunching under my shoes. Outside, I breathed for what felt like the first time in years. That night, I went home and opened my laptop. For months, I'd been holding on to digital files, emails, records, transaction histories, proof of every debt I'd cleared for him. I didn't plan to use it until now. I started typing. A press contact, a headline. The Whitmore legacy isn't what it seems. My finger hovered over send, but something in me hesitated. Revenge was too easy, too cheap. I didn't want to destroy him. I wanted him to see me, to finally understand what he'd broken. I didn't send it. Not yet. The next morning, I got another text, this time from Jenna. You need to come over now. When I arrived, there were cars parked out front, press, neighbors, even a news van. My stomach dropped. Inside, chaos. Mom was crying, Dad was yelling, and Jenna was holding her phone white as a ghost. What happened? I demanded. She turned the screen toward me. It was a video. Another one. This time of Dad arguing with a banker, shouting about unpaid debts, throwing my name around. My son will handle it. He owes me. It had leaked. Someone, maybe Mason, maybe one of his friends, posted it online. In 24 hours, his reputation was in free fall. You happy now? He spat at me. This is what you wanted. No, I said, voice low. But it's what you deserve. He charged toward me, eyes wild. Jenna stepped between us. Stop it, she cried. Both of you. He froze, chest heaving, face red. Then something shifted in his eyes. Not rage this time. Fear. He stumbled back, clutching his chest. Dad, I said, stepping forward. He waved me off, gasping. Call someone. Jenna screamed for Mom. I grabbed my phone, dialing 911 with shaking hands. The ambulance came fast, but time didn't. Every second felt stretched thin. They took him away, lights flashing, leaving behind silence and shattered pride. At the hospital, the doctor's words cut clean. Heart attack. Stable, but critical. Jenna broke down. Mom sat frozen. I just stared at the floor, replaying every word we'd said, every wound we'd thrown like knives. Hours later, I stood by his bed. Machines beeped steadily. His hand twitched once. His face, pale, fragile, looked nothing like the man who built empires and destroyed egos. You always said I was weak, but maybe weakness was loving you anyway. He didn't respond. Maybe he couldn't. Maybe he didn't need to. I sat there all night. Jenna came in once, placed a hand on my shoulder, didn't say a word. By morning, I walked out of that hospital with a decision. I wouldn't expose him. I wouldn't leak the files. Let the world think whatever it wanted. The truth wasn't mine to weaponize. It was mine to carry. The next day, the press calmed. Statements were released. Health issues, temporary stress, the usual PR noise. But behind closed doors, everything changed. Mom started speaking again. Jenna stopped defending him. And me, I started breathing. Weeks passed. Dad came home eventually, thinner, quieter. The first time he saw me, he didn't speak. Just looked. For a second, I saw it. Shame, maybe even regret. He tried to say something, but words failed him. I just nodded. Sometimes silence is the only language left. I focused on work, new clients, bigger projects. My company grew faster than ever. Maybe success isn't the best revenge. It's just proof you survived. Months later, Jenna called me again. You should come by, she said softly. He's trying. Against my better judgment, I did. When I entered his study, he was sitting by the window, sunlight cutting across his face. He looked older. Smaller. You're here, he said quietly. Yeah? You didn't leak it? No. He nodded, staring at the city skyline. Why not? I took a breath. Because I wanted to be better than what you made me. He turned slowly, eyes glistening. For the first time in my life, he looked like a man. Not a symbol, not a tyrant, just human. I was wrong, he whispered, about everything. I didn't say anything. Sometimes forgiveness doesn't need words. It's a decision. A quiet, painful release. He reached into a drawer and pulled out a single document. My name, my inheritance, restored. He said, You earned this. I didn't touch it. Keep it. Start over. He looked like he might argue, but then he just nodded, eyes wet. You're not a failure. You never were.
I turned to leave, and for the first time, his voice didn't sound like authority. It sounded like peace. Outside, the sun was setting, painting everything gold. Jenna met me in the hall, smiling through tears. "So?" she asked softly. I shrugged. "He finally said it." She laughed softly. "Took him long enough." We stood there, watching the light fade. For the first time in years, the Whitmore house felt quiet. Not empty, not broken, just quiet. As I walked to my car, I looked back one last time. Maybe forgiveness isn't weakness. Maybe it's the only thing that keeps us from becoming what we hate. I got in, started the engine, and drove off towards the skyline, city lights flickering like second chances. But my phone buzzed again. A message from Mason, my father's lawyer. "We need to talk. There's something your father never told you." I stared at the screen, pulse racing, the past creeping back like smoke, because maybe the story wasn't over yet. Maybe it was just getting started.
I stared at Mason's text until the screen dimmed and my reflection came back. Me, alone in the glow of a city that loved rumors more than truth. The words, "something your father never told you," hit harder than I wanted to admit. I almost ignored it. Almost. But curiosity has teeth, and mine had already drawn blood too many times. I called him. He answered on the second ring, voice clipped. "Ethan? Good, you saw it. Meet me at my office, now." "It's 10 p.m. "Then I'll pour you a drink." Click. I didn't even change. I drove through the Los Angeles night, windows down, heart loud. Mason's office was a glass tower in Century City, all marble and secrets. He buzzed me in without a word. "You look like hell," he said, handing me a scotch. "Thanks. You're gonna need it." He opened a file on his desk, paper, not digital. That alone felt suspicious. Inside were signatures, bank slips, letters. My father's handwriting. "What is this?" I asked. Mason leaned back. "Your father took out a private loan 5 years ago. Not for gambling. For someone." "Someone?" He nodded. "A woman. Name Evelyn Hart." I blinked. The name meant nothing. "And?" "He wired her over $400,000 over 2 years. Regular payments, discrete transfers, no receipts beyond this." My pulse ticked. "You think he was having an affair?" "I don't think, Ethan. I know, and it gets worse. She had a daughter. 19 now." My stomach flipped. "You're saying I have a half-sister?" "Possibly. The timeline fits." The room went silent except for the hum of the city through the glass. My mind was sprinting through every memory, every time he disappeared for business, every holiday he ruined. I laughed under my breath, disbelief burning. So the man who called me a failure was out there playing family with someone else? Mason didn't answer. He just slid a photo across the desk. A girl, maybe 19, with dark hair and eyes too familiar. My father's eyes. "Her name's Lila," he said. "Lives in San Diego. Your dad kept paying until last year." Then stopped. "She reached out through me last week, said she wants to meet him. He's unaware I told you." "Why are you telling me?" I asked. "Because I'm done protecting him, and maybe you deserve to know who you're forgiving." I left without finishing the drink. The freeway to San Diego felt endless. By dawn, I was parked outside a small beach house, waves crashing in the distance. A girl stepped out carrying surf gear. Same eyes, same slight frown. My throat closed. I didn't speak to her. Not yet. I just watched. Because how do you walk up to someone who might be the result of your father's lies? Later that morning, I texted Jenna. "Need to talk. Alone." We met at a cafe in Venice Beach. She looked better, lighter, like the weight of our father's expectations had finally cracked off. "You look like you haven't slept." "I haven't." "Jenna, Dad had another family." Her cup froze halfway to her lips. "What?" I told her everything.
Mason, the payments, the girl. Her face went from shock to fury. So while Mom was breaking herself to keep him sane, he was out there living another life? Yeah. She covered her face with her hands. We should tell Mom. Not yet, I said. Let me figure out what Lila knows. She nodded slowly. Be careful, Ethan. If this gets out, I know. I went back the next day. Lila was sitting on the porch steps, sketching. I approached quietly. Lila? She looked up, cautious. Yeah? My name is Ethan. Her brow furrowed. Do I know you? Not yet. I sat down a few steps below her. You reached out to a lawyer named Mason? She stiffened. Yeah. You work with him? Something like that. He told me about your mother. Her eyes narrowed. You knew my dad? The word dad hit like a nail. Maybe more than you think. She stared, confusion turning to realization. Wait, who are you? I hesitated. Your father's son. The air went still. She dropped her pencil. You're lying. I wish I was. She stood, shaking her head. No, he said he didn't have any other kids. He lies about a lot of things. Her face broke, half anger, half heartbreak. Why are you here? Because you deserve to know the truth. And maybe I do too. She turned away, wiping her eyes. He stopped calling. My mom got sick last year and he just vanished. Her voice cracked. We thought he'd help. He didn't even help the people living under his own roof, I said quietly. She looked back, eyes shining. So now what? You tell the world? No. I just needed to see. We stood there, two strangers bound by the same wound. He's sick, I said after a moment. Heart attack. He's recovering. She bit her lip. Good. Her tone wasn't cruel, just done. I couldn't blame her. When I laughed, she called after me. Ethan. I turned. If you see him again, tell him I'm real, even if he pretends I'm not. Driving back, her words echoed. Tell him I'm real. I reached home to find Mom waiting on my doorstep, eyes red. Jenna told me. Is it true? I nodded. I'm sorry. She exhaled, looking towards the horizon. I always knew. The late nights, the lies, I just never had proof. You don't have to face him, I said. I will. She shook her head. No, Ethan. We'll do it together. That evening, the three of us stood in his study again. Dad looked fragile, like the illness had drained the arrogance out of him. What's this? He asked. Mom's voice was calm. Evelyn Hart. Lila. Ring any bells? His face went pale. Who told you? Does it matter? I asked quietly. He looked at me, panic flickering. Ethan, you don't understand. No, I do. Perfectly. You built your empire on lies, and now it's time to own them. He sagged back in his chair, defeated. She meant nothing. Mom's voice trembled. She meant something. You kept her secret for years. I thought I was protecting you. I laughed bitterly. You don't protect people by betraying them. He closed his eyes. I was ashamed. Of what? Mom asked. Of her? Of the child? Or of yourself? No answer. Just silence. Finally, he whispered, I didn't know how to be a father. Not to anyone. Something broke in me again, but softer this time. Not anger, pity. Maybe pity is just grief wearing a mask. He looked at me. Did you meet her? Yes. And? She deserves better than your silence. He nodded slowly. Bring her here. What? I asked. She has the right to meet her family before it's too late. Mom turned away, tears in her eyes. It's already too late for apologies. He tried to stand, but his body failed him. Ethan, he said quietly. If she hates me, I understand. But I need to tell her the truth. I didn't answer. I just walked out, heart pounding, because part of me knew this wasn't redemption. It was confession. The next week, I drove Lila back to the estate. She didn't want to at first, but something about closure calls louder than fear. When Dad saw her, he froze. You're real, he whispered. She nodded. Took you long enough to notice. He tried to speak, but emotion strangled the words. She stood there, arms crossed, tears fighting their way out. You could have been there. For her. For me. He swallowed hard. I wanted to. I just didn't know how. He reached for her hand, but she didn't take it. You don't get to make this better with words. But I came because Ethan said you wanted to tell the truth. So tell it. He looked at me, then back at her. I failed you, he whispered. And I failed him. I thought... I stared at Mason's text until the screen dimmed and my reflection came back. Me, alone in the glow of a city that loved rumors more than truth. The words, "something your father never told you," hit harder than I wanted to admit. I almost ignored it. Almost. But curiosity has teeth, and mine had already drawn blood too many times. I called him. He answered on the second ring, voice clipped. Ethan, good, you saw it. Meet me at my office, now. It's 10 p.m. Then I'll pour you a drink. Click. I didn't even change. I drove through the Los Angeles night, windows down, heart loud. Mason's office was a glass tower in Century City, all marble and secrets. He buzzed me in without a word. You look like hell, he said, handing me a scotch. Thanks. You're gonna need it. He opened a file on his desk. Paper, not digital. That alone felt suspicious. Inside were signatures, bank slips, letters. My father's handwriting. What is this? I asked. Mason leaned back. Your father took out a private loan 5 years ago. Not for gambling. For someone. Someone? He nodded. A woman. Name Evelyn Hart. I blinked. The name meant nothing. And he wired her over $400,000 over 2 years. Regular payments, discreet transfers, no receipts beyond this. My pulse ticked. You think he was having an affair? I don't think, Ethan. I know. And it gets worse. She had a daughter, 19 now. My stomach flipped. You're saying I have a half-sister? Possibly. The timeline fits. The room went silent except for the hum of the city through the glass. My mind was sprinting through every memory, every time he disappeared for business, every holiday he ruined. I laughed under my breath, disbelief burning. So, the man who called me a failure was out there playing family with someone else. Mason didn't answer. He just slid a photo across the desk. A girl, maybe 19, with dark hair and eyes too familiar. My father's eyes. He said, her name's Leela, lives in San Diego. Your dad kept paying until last year, then stopped. She reached out through me last week, said she wants to meet him. He's unaware, I told you. Why are you telling me? Because I'm done protecting him. And maybe you deserve to know who you're forgiving. I left without finishing the drink. The freeway to San Diego felt endless. By dawn, I was parked outside a small beach house, waves crashing in the distance. A girl stepped out carrying surf gear. Same eyes, same slight frown. My throat closed. I didn't speak to her. Not yet. I just watched. Because how do you walk up to someone who might be the result of your father's lies? Later that morning, I texted Jenna, "Need to talk, alone." We met at a cafe in Venice Beach. She looked better, lighter, like the weight of our father's expectations had finally cracked off. "You look like you haven't slept," she said. "I haven't. Jenna, Dad had another family." Her cup froze halfway to her lips. "What?" I told her everything. Mason, the payments, the girl. Her face went from shock to fury. So while Mom was breaking herself to keep him sane, he was out there living another life. "Yeah." She covered her face with her hands. "We should tell Mom." "Not yet. Let me figure out what Leela knows." She nodded slowly. "Be careful, Ethan. If this gets out..." "I know." I went back the next day. Leela was sitting on the porch steps, sketching. I approached quietly. "Leela?" She looked up, cautious. "Yeah?" "My name's Ethan." Her brow furrowed. "Do I know you?" "Not yet." I sat down a few steps below her. "You reached out to a lawyer named Mason?" She stiffened. "Yeah. You work with him?" "Something like that. He told me about your mother." Her eyes narrowed. "You knew my dad?" The word dad hit like a nail. "Maybe more than you think." She stared, confusion turning to realization. "Wait, who are you?" I hesitated. "Your father's son." The air went still. She dropped her pencil. "You're lying." "I wish I was." She stood up, shaking her head. "No, he said he didn't have any other kids. He lies about a lot of things." Her face broke, half anger, half heartbreak. "Why are you here?" "Because you deserve to know the truth. And maybe I do too." She turned away, wiping her eyes. "He stopped calling. My mom got sick last year and he just vanished." Her voice cracked. "We thought he'd help." "He didn't even help the people living under his own roof," I said quietly. She looked back, eyes shining. "So now what? You tell the world?" "No, I just needed to see." We stood there, two strangers bound by the same wound. "He's sick," I said after a moment. "Heart attack. He's recovering." She bit her lip. "Good." Her tone wasn't cruel, just done. I couldn't blame her. When I left, she called after me. "Ethan." I turned. "If you see him again, tell him I'm real, even if he pretends I'm not." Driving back, her words echoed. "Tell him I'm real." I reached home to find Mom waiting on my doorstep, eyes red. "Jenna told me," she said. "Is it true?" I nodded. "I'm sorry." She exhaled, looking toward the horizon. "I always knew. The late nights, the lies. I just never had proof." "You don't have to face him. I will." She shook her head. "No, Ethan. We'll do it together." That evening, the three of us stood in his study again. Dad looked fragile, like the illness had drained the arrogance out of him. "What's this?" he asked. Mom's voice was calm. "Evelyn Hart." "Leela. Ring any bells?" He went pale. "Who told you?" "Does it matter?" I said quietly. He looked at me, panic flickering. "Ethan, you don't understand." "No, I do. Perfectly. You built your empire on lies, and now it's time to own them." He sagged back in his chair, defeated. "She meant nothing." Mom's voice trembled. "She meant something. You kept her secret for years. I thought I was protecting you." I laughed bitterly. "You don't protect people by betraying them." He closed his eyes. I was ashamed. "Of what?" Mom asked. "Of her? Of the child?" Or of yourself? No answer. Just silence. Finally, he whispered, I didn't know how to be a father. Not to anyone. Something broke in me again, but softer this time. Not anger, pity. Maybe pity is just grief wearing a mask. He looked at me. Did you meet her? Yes. And? She deserves better than your silence. He nodded slowly. Bring her here. What? I asked. She has the right to meet her family, before it's too late. Mom turned away, tears in her eyes. It's already too late for apologies, she whispered. He tried to stand, but his body failed him. Ethan, he said quietly, if I hate him, I understand, but I need to tell her the truth. I didn't answer. I just walked out, heart pounding, because part of me knew this wasn't redemption. It was confession. The next week, I drove Leela back to the estate. She didn't want to at first, but something about closure calls louder than fear. When Dad saw her, he froze. You're real, he whispered. She nodded. Took you long enough to notice. He tried to speak, but emotion strangled the words. She stood there, arms crossed, tears fighting their way out. You could have been there, she said. For her. For me. He swallowed hard. I wanted to. I just didn't know how. You pick up the phone. You show up. That's how. He reached for her hand, but she didn't take it. You don't get to make this better with words, she said. But I came because Ethan said you wanted to tell the truth, so tell it. He looked at me, then back at her. I failed you, he whispered. And I failed him. I thought I could fix it with money. I thought if I gave enough, no one would see what I'd broken. Tears finally spilled down her face. Then stop pretending. Just be honest. I'm sorry. The room went still. No more shouting, no more lies. Just raw, exhausted truth. She finally nodded. Just once. Goodbye, she whispered, and walked out. When the door closed, he slumped back, shaking. Do you hate me? He asked. I looked at him for a long moment. I don't know, I said. But I don't need to. He closed his eyes. Maybe that was enough. Outside, Leela was standing by her car, breathing hard. You okay? I asked. She shrugged. No, but I guess that's the point. She looked up at the house. You think he meant it?
The night I drove back to the house in Bel Air, the air felt too clean, like the city was holding its breath before a storm. The gate lights flickered on my hood as I pulled in, tires whispering against marble, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like the outsider. I felt like the detonator. Inside, the chandelier threw diamonds across the foyer, Mom's idea of subtlety, and Mason was already there, pacing with a glass of something expensive he wasn't drinking. He looked up when he heard the door click. You got the files? He asked. I nodded, holding up the envelope I'd taken from my dad's accountant's office. Inside was the truth. Every loan, every signature, every quiet wire transfer with my name buried in the margins. He used me to keep his empire from collapsing, I said, and then called me a burden. Mason rubbed the back of his neck. You sure you want to open that box tonight? He opened it first, I said, and walked straight into the living room. My sister was there, Chloe, in her designer silk and perfect smark, scrolling through her phone like nothing in the world could touch her. You came, she said, without looking up. Cute car. New bonus check. Her tone was a blade. I came to talk about the video, I said. That got her attention. She froze mid-scroll, eyes flicking up, sharp as glass. Oh, that. Why'd you send it? I asked. You knew how much I was doing for him, for you. She laughed, low and disbelieving. Doing for me? You think paying off his mistakes makes you a saint? You just liked being the hero. I liked having a family, I said quietly. You took that away. She stood, every movement slow and deliberate. No, you took yourself away when you decided money could buy love. Mason shifted behind me, uneasy, like he could feel the air snapping between us. I pulled the envelope from my jacket and tossed it onto the table. The paper spilled like white confessions. "Those are Dad's loan ledgers," I said. "Every payment in my name, every time he begged the bank not to seize the house. I kept him alive financially while he told the world I was a failure." Chloe's face didn't move, but her hand tightened around her phone. "You broke into his office?" I reclaimed my truth. She gave a short, humorless laugh. "You sound dramatic." "I learned from the best. You and him." Something flickered in her eyes. Fear, maybe, or guilt, but it passed fast. "You don't get it," she said. "Dad's been off. He said you were planning to ruin him." "Did he tell you about the calls from the collectors?" I shot back. "Or that I've been sending him $5,000 a month since I was 23? She blinked. "You're lying." "Check his statements." Mason spoke up then, voice low. "She's not lying, Chloe. I've seen the transfers." The silence that followed felt like the moment before a car crash, the stretch of calm before everything shatters. Then Chloe's phone buzzed, and her face drained of color. "He's on his way." "Dad?" I asked. She nodded. "He said he knows what you stole." I almost laughed. What I stole? I paid for everything. But then headlights flashed through the window, and the front door opened, and my father walked in like a man returning to his kingdom. He looked older than I remembered, tired, gray around the edges, but his eyes still held that steel blue authority that could freeze a room. "You went too far this time. Breaking into my office? Spying on me?" I swallowed the anger clawing its way up. "I wasn't spying. I was saving you." "Saving me?" he repeated, voice sharp. "You've always been obsessed with control. You wanted to be the hero because it made you feel superior?" "Superior?" I took a step forward. "I was paying your debts while you called me a failure. That video was the truth," he cut in. "You were never meant for this family's legacy." The words hit harder than I expected. Chloe looked away, guilt twitching at her jaw. Mason whispered, "Man, stop." But Dad wasn't done. "You want gratitude? You buy that. You don't earn it with pity money." I felt something inside me crack. "Pity money?" I said. "You think I wanted to bail you out? I did it because I thought you still loved me." He stared at me then, something shifting behind his eyes. For a second, I saw regret, but then it vanished. "You shouldn't have come back," he said, turning away. That's when Chloe spoke, soft but deadly. "He's not wrong, you know. You do this to everyone. You try to fix them so you can feel needed." I turned to her slowly. "And you try to break them so you can feel powerful." The slap of words hung heavy in the air. Then Mason's phone buzzed. He looked down and swore. "News sites," he said. "Someone leaked the ledgers. They're everywhere." My stomach dropped. "What?" "The debt files, the transfers, the loan documents. It's public. Someone sent them from your email." Chloe's face went blank. Dad's eyes widened. "I didn't," I said quickly. "I never." But Mason was already scrolling. "The message came from your account at 8:47 p.m. It's got your signature." "That's impossible," I said. "I've been here." "Then who had access to your laptop?" The question hung there like smoke. Chloe's expression flickered. I saw the answer before she spoke. "You," I said. "You were at my place last week. You said you forgot your charger." "You left your computer open," she said flatly. "I just borrowed the truth." "You destroyed me." "No," she whispered. "I freed you." Outside, thunder rolled, a rare electric growl over Los Angeles. Dad's phone rang, lighting up his face. He stared at the screen, jaw tightening. "They're calling from the bank," he said. "We're finished." And for the first time, he looked scared, truly scared. I should have felt vindicated. I didn't. All I felt was empty. The empire he had built on lies was burning, and my hand smelled like smoke. Mason touched my arm. "We can fix this," but his voice sounded small. I turned to my father. "I tried to save you, and you turned me into your enemy." He didn't answer. Chloe was crying now, mascara streaking down her perfect cheeks. The house felt colder, emptier, like the marble itself had given up pretending to shine. Somewhere in the distance, sirens started. "What did you do?" I asked her.
She shook her head. I sent it to the press, but I didn't think. You never do, I said. You just react. Mason stepped between us. Stop, all of you. This isn't fixing anything. But the damage was done. The news was out. The family name was poison. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't the burden. I was the one who could walk away. Dad sank into a chair, shoulders sagging. You've destroyed everything, he whispered. No, I said. You did. I just stopped hiding it. He looked up, eyes wet. Then what happens now? I didn't know the answer yet, but I knew this wasn't the end. Not for me, not for us. Because secrets don't die when they're exposed. They evolve. They find new ways to breathe. And this one was just getting started.
Morning in Los Angeles should have smelled like coffee and ocean air, but that day it smelled like panic. I woke to 36 missed calls, 3 headlines using my name, and 1 text from Mason. Don't open the door. Too late. The knocks were already pounding like gunshots through the foyer. Reporters, drones, flash bulbs against the windows. Overnight, our last name had gone from luxury to liability. I pulled the curtains shut and watched our world crumble in high-definition silence. Dad's empire, our legacy, was trending with words like fraud, embezzlement, and family implosion. Chloe had vanished from social media, which was almost scarier than her posting. Mason finally slipped inside through the back gate, hoodie up. They froze the accounts, he said. Even the trust funds. I laughed, sharp and humorless. Guess we're middle class now. This isn't funny. Nothing about this family ever was. He studied me, like he wasn't sure who he was looking at. What's the plan? Survive, then make them tell the truth. By noon, the lawyers were calling. By 3, the board demanded a statement. I gave them one. A clean, cold confession that wasn't mine, but felt right anyway. I told them the documents were real, that the debts were my father's, that I'd covered them for years to protect his reputation. The feed exploded. Sympathy for me, fury at him. For the first time, I wasn't invisible. But visibility is its own prison. Paparazzi camped outside. Strangers DM'd me their pity like charity. Chloe finally called at midnight, her voice raw. They're threatening jail, you know. For who? Dad. Maybe me. Then tell the truth. You think I can? She hissed. I leaked confidential financials. I'll be crucified. Welcome to honesty. Silence. Then softer. He's not eating. He keeps saying your name. That one sentence cracked something in me I didn't want to admit was still there. Where is he? I asked. His office downtown. He won't leave. Mason offered to drive. The city looked different at night. Empty streets reflecting red and blue from news vans. When we reached the tower, half the windows were dark. Security let us up without a word. I guess shame travels fast. Dad was sitting behind his desk, the skyline bleeding through the glass behind him. Piles of paper everywhere, like confession confetti. He didn't look up. You came to gloat? I came because I don't hate you. Could have fooled me. I wanted you to see the truth. That's all. Truth, he muttered. The truth is I built something for you kids and you tore it apart. You built it on lies. On risk, he snapped. On guts. That's what men do. Men? I laughed. Real men own their mistakes. He slammed a folder onto the desk. Inside was another set of numbers, handwritten, older. You think I didn't pay for you? Your college, your startup, that apartment. Who do you think made those anonymous transfers? My pulse stumbled. You? Of course me. You thought money just fell from the sky? It hit like a reversal of gravity. All those years I believed I was saving him, maybe he'd been saving me too. Why didn't you tell me? Because you'd stopped trying, and I needed you to be stronger than me. Chloe stepped forward from the shadows. She'd followed us in, mascara smeared, but eyes fierce. Then why call him a failure? Dad looked small suddenly. Because it's easier to push someone away than admit you need them. Mason exhaled. Jesus. I felt torn between anger and understanding, the way grief feels like both pain and relief. It doesn't excuse what you did. No, he admitted, but maybe it explains it.
We stood in silence, the kind that only broken families understand. Outside, lightning flashed over downtown, cameras catching every spark. Chloe whispered, "They're coming for him tomorrow, investigators. He'll talk. He'll tell them everything." Dad looked at me, calm. "Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll take the blame. Protect what's left of you." "Don't you dare," I said, throat tight. "We're done hiding behind sacrifice." "You sound like your mother." And for once, it didn't sound like an insult. Mason's phone buzzed again. Another alert. He frowned. "The board just offered you a seat." I blinked. "What?" "They voted you interim CEO. They want the name to survive, and you're the only one the public trusts." Chloe's eyes widened. "You're kidding." "They want a redemption arc. You're it." I looked at Dad. He was smiling, tired but proud. "Guess the burden turned out useful after all," he said. I shook my head. "Don't." "Take it," he insisted. "Fix what I broke." "And what if I can't?" "Then fail on your own terms. That's all I ever wanted for you." For a moment, the room felt like the old days, before the lies, before the video. Then reality crept back. The FBI would come, the empire would shrink, but maybe something honest could grow from what was left. Mason clapped my shoulder. "Let's get you out of here before dawn." As we left, I looked back one last time. Dad sat at his desk, the city burning behind him, and for the first time, he didn't look like a tyrant. He looked like a man finally out of fight. In the elevator, Chloe leaned against the wall. "You'll actually take the seat?" "Maybe, but not for him." "For who then?" "For us. For once." She smiled through tears. "You always wanted to fix everything." "Maybe this time, I will." The doors opened to the lobby, flashes already waiting. Mason whispered, "Showtime." And as I stepped into the chaos, cameras screaming my name, I realized the scandal had rewritten me. I wasn't the failure. I was the headline. But headlines fade, and what comes next would decide if redemption was real or just another performance. Because in this family, even forgiveness had a price.
3 months later, the cameras had moved on to newer scandals, and my last name no longer bought headlines, just silence. I'd taken the board's offer, rebuilt the company with fewer mirrors and more windows, and fired half the people who thought loyalty meant hiding rot. The offices smelled like coffee and disinfectant now, not perfume and lies. Mason handled PR, Chloe disappeared to a rehab retreat somewhere in Utah, and Dad was serving a sentence light enough to feel cruel. Every morning, the paper listed his name beside words like probation and restitution, and every morning, I wondered if justice ever looked like this. Messy, anticlimactic, too human. I kept working anyway. Work was clean. Feelings weren't. The first time I visited him was unplanned. I was driving past the courthouse, saw his name on the docket, and my hands turned the wheel before my brain caught up. The holding room was smaller than I imagined. No mahogany, no empire, just white walls and a plastic table between us. He looked thinner, older, but not broken. "You didn't have to come," he said. "I know," I said, "but I did." "You running the company?" "Trying." He smiled faintly. "You always did." For a while we didn't talk. The silence was heavy but not hostile, like rain that had finally decided to fall. "They treat you okay?" I asked. He shrugged. "It's quieter than I'm used to. Makes me think." "About what?" "About how I raised 2 kids who both thought love had to be earned." I swallowed hard. "We learned from the best." He chuckled softly, then looked at me. "You ever get tired of saving people?" "Every day." "Then stop." I met his eyes. "And let everything fall apart?" "No," he said. "Let it rebuild itself." There was a peace in his voice that unsettled me, like he'd finally made peace with being human. When I left, he didn't ask for anything, not money, not sympathy, not even another visit. Just said, "Take care of your sister." I nodded, though I didn't know if I could. Chloe called a week later. Her voice was small but sober. "They let me out early. Therapy's working, I guess." "Good," I said. "You sound better." "You sound tired." "It's the job." "Dad told me you visited him." "Yeah."
You forgive him? I hesitated. Not completely. You will, she said. We're all just versions of him, aren't we? Maybe, but we get to choose what kind. We met for coffee 2 days later at a small cafe that didn't care about last names. She wore no makeup, no designer anything. Just her. We sat in awkward silence until she said, I didn't mean to ruin your life. I know, I said. You were scared. You were angry. Still am, sometimes. Then how do we move on? I stirred my coffee. By not pretending it didn't happen. She smiled weakly. You really are the fixer. No, I said. I'm just finally learning how to let things stay broken long enough to heal right. When we left, she hugged me, tentatively, like touching a memory. For the first time in years, I didn't pull away. Months passed, the company steadied, people stopped whispering. One evening, I drove to the cliffs overlooking the Pacific, the same spot Dad used to take us when we were kids. The city glowed behind me. The ocean stretched endless ahead. And for once, there was no noise in my head. I pulled out my phone, opened my sister's old video, the one that started everything. His voice still hurt, but this time, I heard something else beneath it. A man scared of losing what little control he had left. I closed the video and let the wind take the words away. In the rearview mirror, my reflection didn't look like him anymore. It looked like someone who'd finally stopped fighting ghosts. My phone buzzed, a text from Mason. Family dinner Sunday. Dad gets supervised leave. I smiled, half nervous, half ready. Yeah, I texted back. I'll be there. The sunset caught the ocean in gold, and for a moment, it looked like everything we'd lost was being returned in color instead of cash. Maybe forgiveness isn't a grand speech or a headline. It's a quiet decision to stop bleeding over old wounds. And maybe love isn't what you give or owe, but what survives after truth does its damage. I started the car, let the road swallow the past, and whispered to no one, Guess we're even now, Dad. The city lights flickered alive behind me, brighter than guilt, softer than revenge. And for the first time in a long time, it felt like home.